This wasn't just another quarterback battle. This was personal. What started as a routine preseason decision has spiraled into controversy, fan outrage, and a media firestorm. Shedeur Sanders wasn't supposed to be the guy, not yet. But after a stunning debut, a viral sideline moment, and a heated exchange that lit up the sports world, the question isn't just who should start. It's why the Browns are trying so hard to pretend there's no controversy at all. Now, Dillon Gabriel is on the defensive, Shedeur Sanders is on the rise, and the pressure on head coach Kevin Stefanski has never been louder. Fans are making their voices heard, and the franchise is suddenly facing a decision they may not be ready for. And at the center of it all, a quiet rookie who might be ready to flip the entire Browns organization on its head. But how? One preseason appearance. That's all it took for Shedeur Sanders to light a fire under the entire Browns fan base. The moment he stepped onto the field, everything shifted. Energy, momentum, even the crowd noise. You could feel it. And by the time the final whistle blew, fans weren't just impressed, they were demanding change. Social media went wild. Start Shedeur started trending within hours. Memes, highlight reels, fan breakdowns, you name it. Even casual viewers were suddenly locked in, replaying that smooth pocket presence and the way he carried himself like a seasoned pro. No panic, no ego, just execution. And what made it even louder? Contrast. Dillon Gabriel, the presumed favorite, had just fumbled, literally and figuratively. Meanwhile, Shedeur delivered on a big stage, under pressure, and with the spotlight burning hot. The comparisons weren't subtle. They weren't delayed. They came instantly. Fans started posting side-by-sides, stats, body language, even post-game interviews. The difference was night and day. One looked like he was scrambling to prove himself. The other looked like he belonged. And this isn't just blind hype. Hardcore Browns fans, people who've lived through decades of quarterback letdowns, were saying something they rarely say in August. We might actually have something here. But it wasn't just fans on Twitter making noise. Once the fans made noise, the media didn't just echo it. They amplified it. Within 24 hours of Shedeur Sanders' breakout performance, sports talk shows were on fire. ESPN, FS1, radio spots, everyone had something to say. But two voices stood out the loudest, Chris Canty and Shannon Sharpe. And they weren't pulling punches. Chris Canty looked straight into the camera and said what a lot of people were thinking, but hadn't said out loud yet. Shedeur didn't just outplay Dillon Gabriel. He outhandled him too. He pointed out Shedeur's poise in the pocket, his maturity during the post-game presser, and his ability to block out the noise, a trait most rookies rarely show this early. Then came Shannon Sharpe, and he came in swinging. He flat out rejected Dillon Gabriel's so-called misunderstood comments, calling it what it was, intentional. Shannon pushed back on the excuses, reminding everyone that being a quarterback isn't just about throwing darts on the field. It's about leadership, presence, owning your moment, and your mistakes. And when analysts start turning, franchises start listening. Because here's the thing, criticism from analysts isn't just hot takes anymore, it's influence. Really watched it. Gabriel didn't hesitate. He didn't stumble over his words. The remark came out clear, calculated, and strangely familiar. And that's when the comparisons took over. Because this wasn't the first time Shedeur Sanders had been called out for entertaining. People immediately remembered last season, Oregon versus Colorado, when Coach Dan Lanning gave that now infamous pregame speech bashing Colorado for playing for clicks while we play for wins. The same tone, the same target. And guess who was under center during that Oregon game? None other than Dillon Gabriel. Now suddenly, it didn't feel like a misunderstanding. It felt intentional. Once that context started surfacing, Gabriel's apology did the opposite of damage control. It made things worse. He backtracked. He claimed it was about the media, not Shedeur. But by then, the narrative had already taken hold. This wasn't a teammate giving an honest evaluation. This was a quarterback trying to throw shade and underestimating the storm that would follow. Because there's one thing you don't do when the spotlight is this hot. You don't talk down to the guy everyone's starting to believe in. And the backlash? That was just getting started. If Dillon Gabriel thought people would forget what happened at Oregon, he was wrong. The moment he threw that entertainer jab at Shedeur Sanders, it triggered a memory fans hadn't forgotten, and honestly, one Gabriel probably should have stayed far away from. Last season, during the peak of Colorado's hype under Coach Prime, Oregon was on a mission, not just to win, but to embarrass. Right before that game, Oregon's head coach Dan Lanning gave one of the most ruthless pregame speeches in recent memory. "They're playing for clicks, we're playing for wins." That clip went viral instantly. Who was Colorado's quarterback back then? Shedeur Sanders. And who was leading Oregon's offense in that exact moment? Dillon Gabriel. The tone was familiar, the phrasing almost identical, which begged the obvious question: was Gabriel really trying to play it off as a general media comment? Because if it walks like a jab, talks like a jab, and sounds exactly like a past jab made against the same player, it's hard to spin it any other way. Chris Canty wasted no time laying it out. He said it straight. This wasn't just an accidental slip. It was part of a pattern, a deeper issue, a narrative Gabriel clearly still buys into, even if he's too cautious to say it outright now. And that's the problem. You can hate the spotlight. You can be uncomfortable with media hype. But when your criticism sounds nearly word for word like something that once tried to tear a young quarterback down, you're not just criticizing play style, you're attacking identity. And just like that, this wasn't about preseason. It was about pride, past scars, and a quarterback who keeps finding himself on the wrong side of history. Meanwhile, Shedeur stayed quiet and kept climbing. While the internet was exploding, Kevin Stefanski said nothing. In a moment when leadership was needed most, all the Browns' head coach could offer were vague statements, awkward pauses, and a shrug disguised as strategy. Instead of clarity, Stefanski gave deflection. And that silence, it spoke volumes. Pressed on who would start against Cincinnati, Stefanski dodged. Asked about the depth chart, he said, like you can figure out your franchise quarterback over a weekend like it's a grocery list. Fans weren't buying it. The media didn't buy it. And honestly, it felt like he didn't buy it either. And that's the part that stings. Because sometimes, it's not what a coach says, it's what he avoids. Every time Shedeur Sanders' name came up, Stefanski looked uncomfortable. Not annoyed, uncertain. Like he knew the tide was turning, but had no idea how to steer with it. Like he realized this wasn't just media noise anymore. It was momentum. And ignoring it only made things worse. By staying neutral, Stefanski didn't protect Gabriel, and he didn't empower Shedeur. He created a vacuum, one that fans and analysts quickly filled with prediction, pressure, and protest. From the outside looking in, it feels like the Browns are scared to make a real decision. Scared of dividing the locker room, of making the wrong call, of tipping the scale too early. But here's the truth. Indecision is a decision. And right now, it's costing them. Because why hold back the one guy who's earned his shot? And how much longer can a coach stall before the locker room and the fan base rebels completely? We were about to find out. Because Shedeur wasn't done. In the middle of the drama, Shedeur Sanders didn't flinch. He didn't jump into interviews to clap back. He didn't fire off cryptic posts or engage in the media war. He just showed up, suited up, and quietly kept giving people a reason to believe. And honestly, that silence started speaking louder than anything Dillon Gabriel said all week. What set Shedeur apart wasn't just his gameplay. It was how he handled the moment. Every time he delivered something solid, Calm decision-making, smart throws, poise at the podium. He was professional, polished, and maybe most importantly, present. He wasn't rattled, and he definitely wasn't playing to the cameras. He just looked like a guy who planned to be there. Insiders started whispering about how Shedeur was carrying himself behind the scenes too. Staff reportedly loved his focus. Teammates respected the work ethic, and even veterans were starting to notice the difference in maturity between him and Gabriel, not just during practice reps, but in leadership moments. Because to lead a team, you don't always have to talk. Sometimes, you just have to show up when it matters most. And Shedeur was doing just that, without brick by brick. And the foundation? It was starting to look stronger than anyone expected this early. But the problem? None of this was happening in a vacuum. No matter how clean Shedeur played it, the elephant in the room was still sitting in Kevin Stefanski's lap. And if you thought the pressure had already peaked, what came next would push the Browns' whole quarterback situation past the point of no return. By now, it wasn't just a quarterback battle, it was a full-blown crisis. The buzz had become a roar. Fans weren't just tweeting. They were protesting at training camp, chanting Shedeur's name during scrimmages, and flooding Browns forums demanding answers. This wasn't preseason hype anymore. It was a movement. One Stefanski couldn't ignore even if he wanted to. Inside the building, things were getting tense. Rumors swirled about players quietly choosing sides. Some veterans reportedly felt Gabriel wasn't taking accountability seriously. Others were confused why the guy outperforming everyone in camp still hadn't been given a real shot. Leadership meetings got longer. Press conferences felt rehearsed and robotic. And through all of it, no quarterback had been named. Stefanski's refusal to make a decision started looking less like strategy and more like fear, afraid to risk losing the locker room, afraid to alienate his staff, afraid of making the wrong move and ending up on the hot seat. But here's the thing, indecision is a decision, and every day that passed without clarity, it made Stefanski look weaker. Fans had already made up their minds. The media had picked a side. The narrative was running at full speed, and not even a teen-issue depth chart was going to. Gabriel's spotlight had dimmed. Shedeur's was blazing, and despite all the silence, the players knew who the fans wanted leading them out in Week 1. If there was ever a time for bold leadership, it was now. But the longer Stefanski stalled, the louder the message became. This wasn't just about football anymore. It was about credibility. And from here, the next move wouldn't just set the tone for the season. It could define his entire head coaching career. This was never just about who throws the tighter spiral. This was about identity, leadership, and trust. Dillon Gabriel had the early advantage. He had the reps, the coach's backing, the media polish, but slowly, brick by brick, that edge crumbled. A fumble on the field, a fumble in front of the mic, a comment that and while Gabriel tried to walk it back, Shedeur did the one thing no one expected. He stayed quiet, stayed composed, and kept outperforming expectations. Now, the spotlight isn't just on the quarterbacks, it's on Kevin Stefanski. Every hesitation, every vague answer, every delayed decision adds more fuel to the fire. Fans aren't just asking for change, they're demanding it. And with every snap Shedeur takes, the cries grow louder. The Browns are standing at a crossroads. Pick the safe choice or take the leap. Stick with experience or ride the momentum of the guy who's turning heads without saying a word. Because whether Stefanski admits it or not, this team, this fan base, and this entire quarterback room isn't waiting for Week 1. The decision has already been made in hearts and minds.